And that is just shameful,
Yeah.
absolutely shameful.
Yeah.
And I told you, I have lived my life in peace. I've never been interested in anything. I always believed the media. Shit, I'm waking up to this crap. Unbelievable. Because I'm on the inside now, and I can see, hang on. The story you're telling is not the story that you should be telling. So.
We're going to talk about sustainable goal number 7 within the Agenda 2030. It's affordable and clean energy. And so today we're going to talk about how it's completely the opposite. But I mean, tell us, you know, why we're here today, and obviously we've come to a disagreement to what they think as an agreement here out in Helensville, Auckland, about the solar panels when they're trying to gain this sustainable energy. But it's in a matter of fact, with all this documentation that we have and through your experience and what's going on, it's actually the complete opposite.
Left us with a bitter taste. The story started in December last year. At the end of the month, we were notified of this plan to put 80,000 solar panels at 23 Rogan Avenue. That is a residential address. So I've yet to find another proposal that would put 250 acres of solar panels next to a township. The site itself is a floodplain, has a very shallow aquifer, which is potentially salty. It's surrounded by areas of special ecological significance. And the idea per se is something that very few of us oppose. But we started digging into the quality of the project, and we were basically left appalled. The site has issues in terms of not really being suitable for it. Most of us think that these issues could potentially be addressed, but it's not cheap. And fundamentally, the driving force behind this project is how cheaply we can make it, how much crap we can get away with. And you have seen a lot of the documentations, the misstatements, mistruths, outright lying, the admissions to leaching, the controversial 4 different versions of vegetation buffers that don't ever seem to match what the ecologist says. It just goes on and on and on and on. We think this has been sort of driven from the top. All of a sudden we got 30-odd solar farm projects in New Zealand popping out of nowhere. Auckland Council doesn't seem to have any rules and regulations for this. In fact, we hired our own planner. He's suggesting that, well, not suggesting, he's stating that, as we understand that, this is being pushed through a loophole basically because there is nothing that would really address the optimal place for a solar farm. We had meeting with the company behind it.
The name of the company again?
HES Aotearoa, and they're basically an offshoot of Hive Energy in England. The local company HES Aotearoa is basically a one-man band with the backing of a British company called Hive Energy. They are big players. This is one example of clustered solar arrays. They actually won an award for this solar farm. They opened it to the public. And the reason why they won an award for this is because of how they integrated it in a rural landscape. And here, back in January, I stated that do it properly, do it right, and I'll be proud to have it next door. What they're suggesting, though, is to do it as an industrial wasteland. So this was my second post where I said, hang on, this idea of using 280 acres of land to make 55 megawatts of power is a waste of land, as you admitted, the HES. In England, this utilitarian industrial change to the landscape is basically turned down. So that's what they're proposing. Just row after row after row after row. This is how the very same people do it in rural England. This is because we got no regulation and no guts, and this is when they are forced to do it right. Same amount of power. Active solar array, passive solar arrays. This fixes a number of environmental concerns. They don't want to listen. That's cheap and nasty. That's slightly more expensive. That's the gist of it. They don't want to spend money. Hive Energy is a very good, reputable, big company. They seem to know what they're doing, but the local offshoot seems to be leaving us wanting more, to put it mildly. They have hired a consultancy firm to do the cultural assessment, because guess what? This is a historic site, a past site. We have yet to see it. The company hired to do the report suggested that they should organize this meeting. They were supposed to present the report. Nobody showed us anything. HES wanted to tell us the usual story about solar panels, how they're saving the world. We don't need to be converted. We are actually just asking for quality. They want to do it here, fine, but we are asking for it to be done properly. And by their own admission, they're wasting 200 plus acres. There are better designs, which I say, again, they admit to it. There are leaching issues to which they admit to. And the controversy, immense controversy surrounding the attempt at pushing this behind everybody's back originally, which they are now trying to mop it up and hide behind the documents I've showed you. So yeah, we are really left thinking, what the hell? If the idea has merit, and I personally think it does, they should be able to stand in front of the public and defend every single objection that we threw at them. None. I mean, they gave us a crappy looking series of images that somebody took with a camera, put a little bit of Photoshop that was not anywhere near as realistic as what they're actually proposing, and we were told that was 3D.
Okay.
That's in 88, same place.
Yeah.
That's how powerful the waters are.
Yeah.
This is a solar farm that went under in Australia. They were warned that the location was wrong. The council approved it. And bingo, 5 years later or so, underwater. This is the list of our concerns. And we have since found a lot of information and just dug out the information from under their hands. This is the best representation of what they want to do. This was done by a student in 3 minutes. You can see the town is smaller than the actual solar farm. To date, 6 months on, the company proposing the solar farm hasn't actually created a decent graphic. There is nothing but lies in their pictures, and I can show you those. This is a viewshed analysis which took literally minutes, and the red is some of the areas that can see the site, and the site is only represented by that dot. So once you select the entire farm, the places that can be seen from would be more. So they didn't even know. The consultancy firm that did the work didn't even know what the viewshed analysis is. This is one of the many maps showing that this was in fact an historic site. Just like this. And this. But their expert claims that this place has no history, no identity, and no sense of place. The company went and did a lot of these views and filled up the room, and then in the end they did the Photoshop and they added a bit of grey to the distance, and the managing director called it the 3D view. A two-dimensional photo with a bit of Photoshop, and they call it 3D view. Unbelievable.
And then also going back to the documents, there were the images that were sent through, and so what were those images for? But they were used Google images. They weren't even their own images, because the company's actually probably never been here in New Zealand.
Never been in New Zealand. So Auckland Council required HES to provide a reflection report, or what they call it, glare assessment, and a cultural assessment. They filed for application without those. Auckland Council caught them out. Eventually they hired this overseas company to do a glare assessment report, and I was expecting to be able to ask questions to them, and they didn't show up at the meeting, and the reason why they didn't show up at the meeting is because they've never been here in New Zealand. And as I explained to you, the disclaimer on this report is that what they've done is theoretically driven, that there is no guarantee that if they do build it that they will not blind anybody, including train drivers and people traveling 100 k's on a state highway.
179 pages.
That's 179 pages, which then prompted the council to reply with 18 objections, for which I needed to apply to the Official Information Act to get a copy of, because they didn't want to share it with me. 16.
And also within those maps, you were saying that there maybe included 100 odd properties, but you said within this area it was actually 600 or more.
Yes, so it took a landscape architect that we asked for help about, I don't know how many minutes, to do a viewshed analysis of the site. She identified hundreds of properties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties that would be affected by this. But the company just hand notified about 30 local properties, although we have no so far verified more than a handful that have actually received the letter. But when they alerted people to the development and they sent a handwritten letter on December the 30th to about 30 properties, they included a cover letter saying we're proceeding with the solar farm, and they included a map. Now, some of my neighbors got a map like this, which shows the title, the logo, the legend, the scale, the north arrow. The subject matter is in the center of the map, and the properties in the map, so that they can see what the relationship is. On the other hand, we get this. No title, no map. No map title, no legend, no arrow, no logo, nothing. And the letter says this is the map for you so that you can see what Rogan Avenue's relationship is to this site. There is no Rogan Avenue, they cut us off. This is what alerted me to the fact that either this is a bunch of incompetent people or they were trying to hide something. And guess what? They've been trying to hide everything ever since.
Wow.
So I don't know who these 30 are. It's just a number that they said to us, oh, it's about 30 that we have sent the letter to.
And you know the area pretty well, you know your
I mean, our group has now grown to more than 300, and it keeps growing. for a small village. And bear in mind, after my third posting on the main Facebook pages, I got kicked out because I was basically stirring too much mud. And my third post was, how dare they push this through as a limited resource notification? And that cut me off. And there is a story behind it why I got cut off. There are friendships and links behind the administrators of the local pages. So when I refer to 330 people in our group, we had to start from scratch, set up our own brochures, started dropping brochures in mailboxes, and we started from zero. And within months we had hundreds of members, and as I said, now it's 330. All uphill battle. But there is interest, and when I incorporated the society and I was struggling with the name, and the office in Christchurch was saying, you need to be specific with the name. Well, what do you want to do? Well, I'm trying to oppose this development. So we ended up calling it Helen's Group Opposing Solar Farm Construction. And when I posted the name online, everybody said, no, we're not opposing it. We just want to have it made right. So now I had to print all the forms and pay again and change the name to Action Group, which is fantastic. So we're not NIMBYs. You want to do it, do it. Do it bloody right. You've chosen an appalling site. There is shitloads of money you have to spend to make it right. That's all we are asking. And the very fact that you admit that you could get away with it with 70 acres instead of wasting more than 200, it's just not suitable. Not suitable. The weight of the land is that they are basically setting up an environmental disaster on a site that constantly floods, and then the entire township is in full view of it. The place is surrounded by area of special ecological significance. There is a protected aquifer just a foot underneath the surface, potentially salt water, in which they want to drive galvanized iron, steel. Fantastic. That's smart. And on it goes. This is not driven by green, this is driven by greed. So that's why I am appalled. And I'm not the only one. I mean...
There's hundreds within the township, as you said, that are opposing against this.
And the local politicians have shown absolutely no spine. And it's not the 330 members of the group. Some of them will just, have families and friends, and so that's votes. It's election coming up. Think about it. But nobody wants to make a statement. Nobody wants to say, hey, yes, you're right, no, you're wrong. And if you're wrong, tell me why. Because I've seen the evidence, and I can debate every argument. I've invited so many trolls to come and argue with me, but too scared.
Even through emails you've showed me, they've said something, but then they've turned to me and say, no, we didn't say that, but you actually have an email stating from that person. I have things
in black and white.
Yeah.
And they want to deny it? I mean, how stupid do you think we are? No.
Yeah, because one thing's to say something in a meeting, and you could say something that someone said, but when you have it straight in an email, black and white, there's just no disagreement there. No. Yeah. Prior to even what they said as well, not after.
This was an attempt at driving it behind the back of everybody in December when the township was all away on holiday. December 30th, handwritten envelope that some of us just picked and threw because thought was some sort of spam. No. And now suddenly when the genie came out of the bottle, at the meeting, we never meant to go any other way than full public notification. Really?
And have you spoken to any, is there a mayor of the township or within the area?
I have made a presentation to the local Rodney board, and it turns out they have known for years. Turns out they don't give a damn.
Wow. So no reply, no. No.
And there is a video of my presentation, and most of the meeting was spent with concerns like a netball court.
Right.
Not with something that affects thousands of people, with the netball court. That was the main issue.
The solar panel farm, basically taking over the town. They're
No,
just
no.
no concern.
Taking over
whatsoever.
the town is correct,
Yeah.
because it's way bigger than the town, or almost identical.
Mhm.
And you can see on a map side by side. So,
And then even deeper so, those panels where they're coming from, we've seen there, they're actually Huawei, which is quite interesting that you brought that up, and you said you had received a brochure completely in Chinese. And so how are you expecting for someone like yourself? I mean, I can read it, no worries, but someone that has no ability whatsoever. I mean, how often does someone speak Chinese, and why the fact is it all in Chinese? Why couldn't they have an English version of it, which is, I find very interesting. And out of all the brands that could have been in China, because China's a big place, they could have used many other brands or particular companies to use these solar panels, but yet they chose Huawei in particular, which I find very interesting.
at the meeting, the managing director stated that, in a matter of fact, that all panels are now done in China, which is false.
Yeah.
They're done in Europe, America, Switzerland, everywhere.
Yeah.
And some are very, very, very good quality, and they will require few of them to do the same output. But he stated to a question from the public, they're all made in China, everywhere. I mean, there's no option but to buy from China. But there's no option to buy that kind of panels because you don't want to spend money. There's no quality in anything that they're doing. And even the fact that somebody smartly enough asked, where are you going to get your steel galvanized from? Because there's quality in galvanizing and quality in galvanizing. And the guy said, oh, we'll do our best to source it locally. Yeah, right.
Yeah. If it was all about sustainability, then why is it a company that hasn't from England that hasn't even been to New Zealand using Google Photos and getting the solar panels from China? Has nothing to do with, and the only thing that is local is the land.
There is actually a net loss of employment in our mind, because as it is now, it's a source of employment as a farm. But once it's all said and done, and by their own admission, it's all automatically controlled. So
yeah, well, that's another good question. Who's going to actually implement and plant these solar panels here?
We don't know.
Yeah.
No, but there is a good chance it'll be somebody from somewhere else. But it's 10 trucks a day for 9 months, and then they try to get the application through with no details or how they are going to connect this to the grid. Nothing. And then, sure enough, Auckland Council asked, and now the details are emerging. They need to cut the entire town in half to put the cable from here to the other end.
Wow. And then who controls that cable as well?
Victor. But I mean, that was completely set aside in the original application. The original application was shamefully incomplete. Shamefully incomplete. I mean, the fact that the council put 18 holes into it, for me, there would be another dozen on top of it. But they haven't done really any hydrogeological report on the massive amount of water that comes down all the way from the Waitakares. I mean, the water here comes all the way from basically Scenic Drive in Auckland. This is the only way the water goes out. And the floods we have had historically, as recently as last year, that just take everything with them. And we'll end up with these solar panels getting stuck in the Kuiper mud. They would be declared bankrupt and walk away. And who's going to clean the mess?
Unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable.
And so showing proof of this, so someone is at this point going, well, you know, hang on, solar panels are good, you know, whatever, if they float away, we'll just replace them, blah, blah. You've shown me an example of, was it in Queensland, wasn't it, that they actually had the same thing. They seem to have chosen a very similar, basically swamp to put solar panels on.
And
and what was the results of that as well?
They flooded. Yeah. And they were warned that the numbers in terms of flooding expectation in the next 100 years were all hocus pocus, and so that's in Queensland, flooded. The saving grace in their case is that they went for passive arrays, from my understanding. This crowd here is trying to go active, so they have no choice but to prevent the place from flooding, because it would burn millions of dollars worth of electrical motors. that are driving the panels throughout the day. And I've shown you that they could easily use less land, use passive array, cluster it, free up land to plant, turn into park or whatever. The cluster design would dissipate the energy of the incoming water. And I keep saying it, there are technical solutions to virtually every problem. But because this site offers so many problems, it's so anti-economical to address them, but they still want to do it. They should just pick a better site. I mean, it's not rocket science that this is being driven by greed. Even how they eventually admitted how they ended up in here, it's got nothing to do with them searching high and dry, high and left, right, and center for the right place. This is just a guy that basically said that here's a advertising in the local magazine, let's see what they have to offer in terms of economic return. And here we are, wasting our time.
And all completely privatised, nothing got to do with government standard. It's all having to apply to the council. And talking about applying for councils, this is actually iwi land, isn't it, as you mentioned?
This is the Makari.
And so have they applied to iwi land? This is Ngāti Whātua, isn't it?
It's murky. So they hired a private contractor to do the cultural assessment report. I just asked last week for an official information request to see it. It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
There is a black and white statement by them saying that the iwi have been consulted, they're happy with the vegetation buffer, they're happy with the proposal, but there is no proof in black and white to actually show them.
That'll be interesting to actually speak to the local iwi and see if they've been contacted in the first place as well.
You can check the comments on our Facebook page of people from the various marae here saying nobody's been in contact with them.
Wow. There you go.
So, how does this consultation work? And the first company they hired were actually in Whangarei, we are in Auckland. How does that work? No, I'm sorry.
No, the whole thing
it's been a disgrace from day zero, so from day one.
Yeah. But there's the la pesce puzza. Vero?
Yeah. That will go on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, grazie a te. Is there any sort of final words you want to say to anyone in terms of, something?
When the Herald does the appalling job, a one-sided article, when they had access to all our documents, and they could have spent a day researching the facts, researching the documents, that article was written like in half a day. It's crap. The guy didn't even reply to my request to explain his behavior. And then the other media, Mike Hosking and RNZ, and I have no respect left for RNZ anymore, they just all get into the same bandwagon bullshitting us when they could have checked our posts and actually learned that we're not opposing it. We just want it done right. None. It's not journalism, it's sensationalism.
So they just literally went through the Facebook post, selected what they wanted to speak about, didn't bother to contact you, come here in person, or
they
even
made
check
one
out.
interview, and then they interview some of the unknown quantity like RNZ did before. They just pick the opposing view just because they're bound to pretend that they are being impartial. Still, yeah. I mean, I know they access my graphics.
Yeah.
I know they use them because they ended up on the Herald. This same page with those graphics were all the other issues, but they chose one only, our views. And that is just shameful. Absolutely shameful.
Yeah.
And I told you, I have lived my life in peace. I've never been interested in anything. I always believed the media. Shit, I'm waking up to this crap. Unbelievable. Because I'm on the inside now. And I can see, hang on. The story you're telling is not the story that you should be telling. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. No, it's fair enough. It's unfair to everyone that it involves, and this is only just one of the many sustainable goals that apparently are meant to, help and reconnect everyone as communities, but it's doing the complete opposite, isn't it? Yeah.
Everything has become commercial, just like the idea of turning New Zealand one giant pine forest. And then now everybody's hitting the brakes. Oh, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me come here and getting the story out. And obviously we'll attach all the pretty much documentations, and people are going to see it through the video anyway, but links and through the description, and obviously that if they want to help or understand more, they can connect through the Facebook group as well, yeah, and ask you any questions or talk within that community as well, can't they?
I offered to meet with anybody, including the trolls online. Suddenly they disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. No, grazie mille a te. Un piacere.
Mio.